Hello, science enthusiasts. Welcome to Spaces Unleashed. Every week on Twitter, we bring an expert to chat live through the Spaces program. And this is bonus content that goes with the Science Podcast. We hope you enjoy the show. Folks who haven't listened to our interview on the podcast, can we talk a little bit about, like I introduced you as Dr. Shenell Tolson. What's your educational background there, Doc?
So my undergraduate degrees are in biology and molecular biology, biochemistry, and bioinformatics. My master's degree is in science education with a concentration on molecular biology. And my doctorate degree is public health with a focus on global health.
I think you need that sound effect. That good. That's pretty impressive. What got you?
Thank you.
What got you into science in the first place? Like what?
Oh, so I've always been interested in science.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, as my granddaddy would say, since I was knee high to a grasshopper. I've always been interested in science. I've always been tinkering with things, playing outside, mud pies, looking at bugs, and playing in the creek out back and in the water and whatnot. So I've always been interested in just how things work. And then, of course, when they give me a microscope in school, I mean, that was the end of it. Game over. I was hooked, so science has always been my thing. And I don't know what else I could do. Sometimes when I talk to kids in their classrooms, I also do Skype a scientist. And so sometimes they'll say, well, what would you do if you couldn't be a scientist? And I'm like, yeah, nothing. This is it for me. I'm a scientist through and through.
Oh. Were you, when you got that microscope, did you find everything you possibly could look at under it? Oh
my God.
Yeah. You remember that? That was like do you remember being that curious that you just couldn't stop looking at things?
Oh yeah. And it was everything. And simple stuff like leaves, earthworms. I mean, anything that I could pick up and get my hands on and I could look at it, I'm looking at it. Dirt, water samples. Like I just wanted to see everything. And it was really interesting that one, that I was able to do that, but two, I also had people that were able to pour into me. So my teacher didn't always stop me. She would be like, okay, Shenell, whatever. You know what I mean? So she kind of let me go at it. And, just from there, it just took over from there. So I've been hooked ever since.
Now, in your PhD program, you had to, most people who get through that, and I mean, I'm in awe of folks that can get through their masters. Because I just have two undergrads. Like it's a big step up going through masters and then a big step up going through the PhD. I apologize. I maybe jumped the gun with my applause, but what did you do research on in your PhD?
So my focus is on global health. And so looking at infectious diseases and whatnot around the world, but I focused my dissertation studies in a developing country. Mm-hmm. And with that, things that plague the area, health disparities, what that looks like. And when I say what that looks like, what I mean is the impetus for those things, how it started, where it came from, what people are doing about it, how it affects populations, if we can mitigate those circumstances, what it looks like for infrastructure development in those areas where there isn't any or if it's weak, and what it looks like to try to help overcome those things. And when we say help overcome, this is something that I speak to incoming students or students who want to go on missions trips. We're going to go for a little tangent here. Okay, Jason, but I'm going to bring you back, I promise.
No, your tangents are my favorite rides in a theme park. So I'm here for it.
So one of the things that I think is super important when it comes to, and I'll use the term humanitarian efforts, when we use the terms missions trips and things like that, I think it's super important that we understand that when we go to other countries, although we may be the experts in the literature, right? We're the experts in the study of what's going on, but the true experts are those who have the lived experience, right? So when you come into another country, when you are in their space, the people who are actually in the community, they're the experts. And that's super important because when it comes to research and understanding the phenomena that are happening while you're there actually doing the research, it's super important to listen to the communities to actually get a better understanding of what's happening. And that's really how my research was informed, by listening to the people that were there and seeing how different things were occurring, whether it be a communicable disease or a non-communicable disease. So that's super important to say. But bringing it back, the outcomes for vegetation included being able to have an MOU, a memorandum of understanding between one of the local universities in that country and with my university. What that looks like is, instead of having a normal exchange of students back and forth between the two universities, we helped develop a curriculum based on our public health program that would then supply a pipeline of sorts of students who are attending school for different health work, meaning allied health workers, pharmacy technicians, medical aides, nurses, CRNAs, things like that, all the way up to medical school. So providing a pipeline of students who are interested in going into those areas so that the country is no longer reliant upon outside sources like NGOs that come in and bring money to the areas. And the reason for that, the reason why that's so important for me and my research is because what we find is that NGOs are supplied by people who donate monies. So you donate monies, and then that money goes to the area that the NGO is in at that time period. But once the money runs out, the NGO pulls out, and the country is left no better than they were before the NGO got involved. So for me, what I think is super important is to be able to have a self-sustainability. I'm trying to say this in a way that's not degrading, but being able to care for yourself and rely on yourself is super important for not just sustainability, but for the economy and for long-lasting results without having some kind of outside entity come in and do things for you. Because if you're reliant on an outside entity, once they leave and pull out, you're left no better than you were beforehand. I hope that makes sense.
Yep.
Does that make sense? Okay, good.
Yeah, like I guess an analogy I could use with school, because I'm a teacher, right? Is a kid can sit down next to you and you can, try to teach them a concept and you show them and you show them and you show them, but until they do it, until they have the skills, when you leave, they're still sitting there wondering how they can solve the problem.
Exactly. And a lot of the problems that I saw weren't caused by the people that were living the experience. They were caused by outside sources. So it's kind of hard to get back on your feet when you weren't the cause of the problem in the first place. So, but things like that. So let's bring the science into that. So how does science play a role in that? Well, there are certain things. We kind of touched upon this a bit in the podcast, but I'll use an example of, let's say, diabetes, right? So people tend to think that, oh, okay, diabetes is this huge deal, and I need to take medicine to correct the issue, and then I'll get better or not get better. You'll be on maintenance meds for life, right? But people don't understand when the doctor says, hey, you can't have this food type anymore, right? So they say, and I'll speak just for the Black diaspora, right? I'll speak to what happens with, and I use my grandparents as an example. So if they go to the doctor and the doctor says, hey, you can't have this kind of chicken anymore. You can't have it fried, try baked. Or you can't have cake. You can't have these sweet things that you like to eat or all your favorite foods. You can't have these foods all the time anymore. You got to just cut them out, period. What they're not explaining sometimes is that you don't have to necessarily cut out all your favorite foods. You can just decrease the amount of those foods that you eat. Because whether you eat an apple or a cupcake, it's going to turn to sugar anyway. So here's where the STEM concepts come in, right? So everything you eat, because humans are sugar machines, we're sugar factories, right? So cars run on gas. If you want your car to run, you put gas in it. If you want your body to run, you put sugar in it. And anything you eat turns to sugar, glucose, right? So that's the STEM concept behind that. So when you tell someone they can't have their favorite foods, it's kind of like, well, it doesn't really matter what you eat. It's going to turn to sugar anyway. But if you can reduce the glycemic index, if you can reduce that big boost of sugar that comes with those foods that you eat over time, you can do better at getting someone to maintain those kinds of healthy behavior choices and those changes. So instead of saying, hey, you can't have fried chicken, you say, hey, listen, can we try to do fried chicken once a week instead of 5 days a week? Or can we say, grandma, but you said those little changes, and they make a difference in helping somebody to understand. And I'm trying to bridge public health with this too, right? This is how I use my STEM background to kind of, in science, to help people understand different diseases, whether it be a communicable disease, a non-communicable disease like diabetes or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. I find that when people make decisions or when they are afraid to make decisions or don't want to, it's not because they're ignorant, as in, they're stupid people. They just don't have all the facts. And when people understand what's happening, they can make better decisions because they're choosing better because they now know better. And I relate this to masks, right? People, we talked about this on the podcast too. People were really like, I don't understand what a mask is going to do for me as far as COVID is concerned, right? But then we start explaining to folks like, hey, you know what? The mask itself isn't this miracle thing, but it's a physical barrier. So if someone is actually breathing and they have COVID and these droplets are floating around in the air, having a physical barrier to protect you from inhaling them is going to help reduce your risk, right? So it's not a magical, fix all, but it's going to help a little bit. And so when you explain things like that to people, it kind of helps to quell some of the dissonance. And then it also it helps people understand that everything isn't just a cure-all. And they're more easily receptive to making those positive behavior changes. And I hope that makes sense.
No, it does. And I think maybe that was a front for like up in Canada, our government maybe made some missteps with explaining vaccines to people that, they greatly reduce your risk of severe disease, but you could still possibly get the COVID, right? That was the thing. And then people were shocked that vaccinated people were getting COVID. And there was maybe some SciComm public health mistakes and missteps that happened with that. And maybe we should have had folks like you explaining it on the news every day.
So, what's really funny about that? So someone actually asked me about this towards the latter part of the month last month, because they were talking about being scared to get the vaccine. And, we can go on and on about what that means for people in the diaspora, because there have been some historical there that really play a major part in that. But one of the things I think that was, I don't want to say is a misstep, but I think it's a misconception by the public. A lot of people think that vaccines are cures. A vaccine will cure disease. And again, so when we bring these STEM concepts in, like I'm about to do now, this is what kind of helps people understand and kind of, curves that misconception. Vaccines don't cure anything. They're not meant to cure anything. A vaccine is not a cure. A vaccine is supposed to mimic your body's own reaction to getting an infection, right? So in order for your body to make antibodies, you first need to come in contact with the antigen or the bad guy. So a bad guy comes into your space, gets in your body, rah, 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 does all this bad stuff, right? But your body will say, hey, listen, this is a foreign invader. This is a bad guy. They don't belong here. Your body creates antibodies and fights off that foreign invader. And during that process of your body making antibodies, that's when you get sick, when you feel all those symptoms coming on. You get a fever, your body's chill, you got chills and body aches, other kind of good stuff. And maybe your lymph nodes will swell up. That's your body's reaction to fighting off the infection, right? But now let's say you don't have to go through all of that. Let's say your body can still make antibodies without having to come in contact with so many of those bad guys and not having to go through the entire phase of getting sick or the full-on symptoms. So if you could take a tiny bit of that bad guy and put it into your body and still get the good reaction, which is the antibodies, but you don't get any of the sickness or you don't get the full-blown illness, wouldn't you do that? And so when you explain it to someone that way, they're like, well, what do you mean? Well, that's what a vaccine does. Instead of you having to come in contact with a full-blown sickness and get the full-blown symptoms of the disease, you get a little bit of the bad guy and put it into your body. That's the vaccination or the inoculation part. And your body recognizes that tiny bit of bad guy and creates antibodies. So now, with that being said, that's still not a cure. What that is once those antibodies have been created by your body, the next time you come in contact with that bad guy, in this case, we're going to say COVID, right? So you're in a space where someone has COVID. If you're vaccinated, what should happen is your body should have created enough antibodies that you don't get sick from the full-on disease and you don't get the full disease symptoms. You may still get, a little bit of sickness because, again, this is not a cure. So you can still get COVID, but you're probably, in our case, what we're seeing now, what the studies are showing now, people who are vaccinated are not getting the COVID symptoms and the full-blown disease symptoms as someone who is not vaccinated. And then we know now that people who have been boosted, they're also getting less symptoms as well. So it's not really about a cure. It's just about risk versus benefit. And there still are some risks for people that are immunocompromised. And there's still the possibility that you can get a reaction because, reactions happen. to anything, Tylenol, aspirin, anything. So that's still a possibility. But I think that one of the major misconceptions was that people thought that a vaccine was a cure and thought that, oh no, people are still getting COVID with the vaccine. I'm not going to get it. It doesn't work. And it's like, that's not quite what, how it works.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. That was a misconception. And I think, our account could have even done better. Our science communication, our dog account, we could have even done better with that. I guess we all learn. Is it a little surreal that you went through this training, Doc, and then you're living through a pandemic? Like, is that a little surreal for you? Because this is like your jam, right? You went to school for all of this, like disease and disease transmission, and it's the world. Like, it's not just a country; it's everywhere. I wonder, did it feel a little surreal for you?
Actually, so kind of, yeah. But I'm going to say what, because, so of course, you never want this to happen. No one, lives for this day to happen, right? You don't live for this to happen. But what I find is that it's given a lot of people the opportunity to hone in on their science communication skills.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'll use myself. So I've always been pretty good at explaining things to people who don't understand science. I've been pretty good at that. Although sometimes I can speak really quickly. I speak fast sometimes. My students tell me that.
Yeah.
Like, you talk too fast, slow down. But I get really excited when it comes to science. Science gets me so excited. So I'm like, blah, 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 blah. but I think that what this has done is it's really shined a light on what good science communication looks like and what it doesn't look like. I think that we're seeing a lot of things happen now that will hopefully be lessons learned for the future about how to communicate science, how to communicate public health directives, what that looks like, and what's the best practice to reach a large audience so we don't get like, a bunch of folks being scared, and buying up all the TP.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Can you talk we're going to move on to my next question, but in your study, did you look at a specific country, like back in your PhD dissertation? Was it a specific country, like or a case study of many? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so I actually went to Haiti.
Oh, Haiti. Okay.
Yeah, I went to Haiti. I traveled back and forth to Haiti for a few years and did research there. And that is mainly because of the historical context. So again, I'm really about making sure that areas that have been colonized, disenfranchised, historically marginalized, are able to be self-sustainable. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people look at developing countries and don't realize that the issues that they face currently weren't caused by them. And that makes a huge difference in how they are, one, affected, and two, how they can move past those things. Because it's just really, really devastating. A lot of people don't realize that for a long, long time, Haiti still owed France a lot of money because they paid for their freedom. They were the first free nation of Black folks that were enslaved. And so that's why they are so poor. They were actually a pretty rich country. They're so poor because they had to pay France for their freedom. And so that's how that happened. And then you get to things like when they went to pay the money back, the things they had to do to pay the money back included like overforesting their land. It included like mass agriculture to sell off some things. And so when those happened, that changed the topography of Haiti was basically like jungle and forest. And now it's not. So then you think about where they're situated, right? They're situated in the Caribbean, and that's hurricane central. So now you have all these natural disasters that occur in the area, but the landscape has changed so much that there's nothing for the trees to hold on to. So now things like mudslides. Exactly. So, but again, and people don't see how those things are connected, but really that all comes back to that colonization. Had that not happened and that large sum of money needs to be paid off, certain things, certain practices would not have changed the entire topography of the landscape. And so now they're like sitting ducks and when that hurricane comes, because it's changed so much. And those things actually play a huge role in how they can recover from hurricanes. Because most countries in the Caribbean, hurricanes happen, they recover, not a big deal. But when you've been, when your economy has been hit so hard and you don't have the infrastructure in place to do that, it makes it even harder to recover. And so, believe it or not, that's public health, because health is not just about not being sick, right? Health is about the entire well-being, being a healthy person, being able to provide for yourself, being able to be educated, because education leads to being able to get a good job. Getting a job means you can feed yourself and your family. You can have a good life. Mm-hmm. So those things all play a role. Socioeconomic status plays a role in health. I just did, well, I will be doing an explanation on how in certain cities, your zip code determines your life expectancy. So someone who lives, if you've ever been into a city in the United States, a major city, a lot of people will tell you, you can go 2 streets over and it's like, rags to riches. You got pearls and diamonds on one street, and then 2 streets over, you've got a homeless population. So the difference in zip code makes all the difference in your lifespan, up to 20 years difference, actually. So your neighbors could live 20 years longer than you do if they have better access to resources based on zip code. Again, that's all public health. So it's really interesting how these things play a role in lives and lifespans and all that kind of good stuff.
I was reflecting. I was
depress anybody.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean.
No, I don't want to depress you. I'm sorry.
No. This brings up something. I was reflecting today. It's International Women's Day, and I was putting together these massive threads of everybody that we talked to on the podcast that is a woman, and one of the I tweeted about this lady. She's a public health official. And I remember our discussion on the podcast was she was talking about just teeth health and folks who don't have coverage for their teeth. It's like the thing you just leave and your teeth get bad. And she says, you would not believe how many horrible health outcomes stem from having bad teeth. And I was blown away, like high blood pressure, depression, suicidal thoughts, and that's just one thing. So what you're talking about now, and I was reflecting, I got to her name. Her name's Rue Silver. And I was like, just reflecting on her talk with me about just teeth. And this is what it's bringing back to is like, it's not just the hurricane. It's a whole bunch of other stuff that can really affect a country like Haiti, I guess.
Yes. And then even in the United States, like you were saying, imagine the differences in healthcare. I keep forgetting you're a candidate, and I'm so sorry. So in the United States, healthcare is a big deal if you live in the United States, right? Everyone can't afford access to healthcare. And that the outcomes because of that can be very, very dire, right? So things like teeth, not going to the dentist can lead to several health outcomes that are not desirable. Not being able to get your annual, your physical, so you'll just get checked out all over all over your whole body getting checked out, right? Not having that kind of access is tough. Or if you do happen to get hurt and need to go to the doctor and you don't have insurance and can't afford it, some people don't go unless they have to. Just being able, if you have an emergency and going to the hospital via the ambulance, that's the difference between, couple of $1,000s or not. It's really expensive to get sick in the EF. You got to have a health insurance. If you don't, it's bad. It's really bad. It's really bad.
Yeah,
and the outcomes.
I can't imagine. Chris will back me up. Like about 2.5 weeks ago, I was sitting at the computer, and she says, "Oh my, your eye! You have a burst blood vessel in your eye," and I'm like, "What?" And I went to the mirror and I looked, and I've talked about this on the podcast in the last little bit. And I could see like the blood pooling in my eye from a burst blood vessel. And of course that's never ever happened to me. And I had a panic attack. I got super like woozy. So, Chris took me to the emergency room, right? Got in there, saw an ER doc. He's like, yeah, this is nothing. You'll be totally fine. It'll go away in 2.5 weeks. And I went home, and I had to pay $0.
And it cost $0.
Yeah, it cost $0.
$0 to do that. The reason why we went to the ER is because Jason felt clammy, and he said, "Oh, I don't feel good." And because I was going to take him to the walk-in and drop him off there, but yeah. So then I'm like, well, let's just go. Like if you are having a medical emergency, then you'll be in the right place and they'll be able to take care of you. But also with teeth, it's flossing. If you're not flossing, and you can get gum disease, and that can lead to heart disease, and it's all connected. Your whole digestive system is connected, and it's really important for your health to take care of those things.
So I guess I better floss tonight, Chris. Hey.
Yes, and not burst any more blood vessels in your eye.
Hey, I can't control that.
I was like, Jason, I looked at you and I'm like, this is what it is. And although I'm not a medical doctor, but I was pretty sure that's what it was. And then that led to our trip to town.
Okay, well, I freaked out. But anyway, sorry, Doc. I got off the rails there. But I guess that was like an experience in Canada that maybe the Americans would like to hear about for our healthcare.
Especially when Chris said $0, I was like, $0? Like what?
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Well, it's quote unquote free, but like our taxes are higher, right? So it's not free. But
not dollar for dollar, Jason. Like if you really look into it,
no,
yes,
I know.
We have
I know.
Taxes, but it's just surprising. Sometimes I think of the mortality rate in a developed nation, such as the United States, like infant mortality rate, and it just shouldn't be happening. Because sometimes, like how you're saying, doctor, that women don't necessarily go for those prenatal checkups because they don't have that insurance or that ability to access that. And for me, I just can't imagine.
Yeah, it's really it's something that is known. It's not something that is hidden, so we know these things are occurring, but for some reason, they just don't seem to be that important. When we think about the hierarchy of things that are important, healthcare doesn't seem to be at the top of the list. A lot of people don't have healthcare or don't have access to certain things. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what we can do to get that higher up on the list. It's
a bigger issue than we can deal with this in the space, perhaps. But it's a really important conversation, right? I'm so glad we had this, and you talked about your research in Haiti, and you talked about something. That's not something I thought about until you mentioned it. That everything is connected to the history of a country sometimes. So that's really important.
Yeah. I'm sorry it took a turn. I'm sorry for not lighthearted on that one. But that was just that's what I studied. So
it was me. I derailed after I talked about Jason's eye.
My eye is fine now. It's just I was walking around with my eye closed, and then I had to present at teachers convention. So it's a whole thing. I had to warn everybody. I was like, hey, I've got a big burst blood vessel in my eye. Please don't email the conference saying that the presenter's having a stroke or something. I'm totally fine. And then my students, some of them were so polite. They just, when I started teaching again, it was still really bad, right? And some of them would look at me and they'd look away, or they wouldn't make eye contact because it was bothering them. Anyways, it's a whole thing. Doc, can we move on to my second question, if that's okay?
Sure.
So we can't talk about where you work, because that's a little thing, but could you talk about the work you do right now, currently?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So I'm a biologist in real life. I don't play one on TV, but I hope to one day. Yay! So I'm a real scientist, and so I do science work. And so right now, the work that I do focuses on residential and occupational exposures and dietary exposures. So what that means is different chemicals that you might come in contact with via residential, so in your home, occupational, where you work, and then of course dietary. Maybe you'll eat it or come in contact with it somehow with consumption somehow in your life. And so what that means is I'm part of a team that makes sure that things that you come in contact with through those 3 exposure routes are safe, that there is no risk, or there is a low risk, a very, very low risk associated with those exposure pathways.
Okay, so I get it. Okay, so I've got a couple questions. What is something in our environment /diet that is potentially bad that we don't think about? Like, what's one of the things you're like, ooh, people's got to know about this? You know what I mean? Like, I have no idea.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say bad. I wouldn't say that. I just think we should be more cognizant. So for example, household cleaners. So a lot of people, especially if you're a parent, right? Kids get into everything. They get sticky hands and they touch everything, all the kind of good stuff, right? So you want to make sure that you're cleaning things up. But a lot of times, parents don't want to get out the mop in the bucket, right? Or a sponge and start sponging things down. They might use something like a wipe, without naming any brands, right? You might use your favorite brand wipe that has a disinfectant inside of it or an antimicrobial inside it, embedded into the actual cloth. And so you use that for a quick cleanup. It's going to kill the germs, clean the space, no more sticky stuff wherever the kid touched, right? That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of times we take for granted that even though these things are safe in small doses and small quantities, because of course, if they weren't safe, we wouldn't be able to use them on things like countertops. You know what I mean? So if it wasn't safe, we couldn't use them at all. But I think that we take for granted that we use these things and then we don't rinse them off. I think that's one thing that we need to be more cognizant of. So, when you clean your surfaces and you're using these household cleansers, rinsing them off afterwards will help eliminate the exposure. Some people, when they are cleaning their countertops off or wiping down their cutting boards, they may, instead of using a plate, they may make their sandwiches directly on that same surface. And so now you're absorbing some of the residue that's left over from that cleanser onto your food. So I think things like that we need to take more consideration of. I'm not saying that, we're going to die. I'm not saying that, okay? So don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that we should be more cognizant about things like that. Even though they're safe in general, you don't want to keep exposing yourself to it over and over again just because it's still a chemical that shouldn't be in your body,
Yeah. And then not like eating a sandwich, a peanut butter jelly sandwich that was just in the chemical every lunch or something like that.
Yeah. But again, some people just, that's the culture of their household. Maybe they don't use a plate to make the sandwich. Sometimes people make sandwiches directly on their countertops. I do. And we know that from NHANES data. Oh, so you do? Yeah. So NHANES that tells us that. Yeah. A lot of people do. You aren't alone. You are not alone, Jason.
Maybe that's what caused my eye to go blah, blah, blah.
No.
I'm just kidding.
No. But yeah, so let's get into that. We use NHANES data. That's the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. And so that tells us what people do in their household. They answer questionnaires and surveys. And so it's aggregated, and we take those numbers and look at how people behave in their household. And that's how we found out that a lot of people don't use a plate to make their sandwiches. They actually make it directly on the countertops. And that data, so and this is the good part about science that's super cool, because things you don't think about. So me as a scientist, I never would have thought about that at all. I'm like, well, use a plate. So those things, but everyone doesn't do that, right? And there are enough people who don't do that to where it makes an effect or has an effect on how we then move forward with assessing the hazard or the risk associated with something. Because now we need to take that kind of data into consideration. Like, okay, people are using wipes to clean their countertops. Yeah, but, and you might think someone who doesn't use the countertop to make their sandwich directly might think, oh, well, there's no worry about exposure to that chemical because someone who's making a sandwich will use a plate instead of doing it right on the countertop. But now that we have this data that says, no, a lot of Americans don't do that, that helps us with exposure rates and knowing that, hey, we need to consider this rate of exposure as well, instead of just saying, oh, are you going to eat it or not? There are other rates of exposure: countertops, tabletops, doorknobs, fridges. People don't think about things like that too. People think that, oh, you wipe things down or spray them down, and then you just touch it and move on throughout your day. People don't think about washing their hands in between touching a doorknob or the countertop or what they just wiped down, because they're thinking, hey, this is clean, I don't need to wash my hands. Not considering, well, yeah, the surface is clean, but it also still has a little bit of residue from the chemical that you used. So if you're just going from that doorknob that you just wiped down and sprayed down with your brand name cleanser, or that countertop, and now you're making food like grapes or whatnot, and you're, now you have your hands, you're putting your hands on your food, meaning you're not using utensils, right? So finger food. So now you've got the chemical residue on your hand, and now you're popping your food in your mouth, and boom, there you have dietary exposure. So things like that you don't consider. And that's the cool part about science. Like, there's other things we have to consider too. So it's not just numbers and chemicals, all that kind of good stuff.
And that's the part I like. It's like almost sociology, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. And all that goes into, now those are the parts that go into the actual science data that I have to look at. Because I am looking at data also. I'm looking at chemical data and all that kind of good stuff. But there are other things that play a role in that. The reason why that's important is because when people think about public health, they don't necessarily think about science. But here, again, I'm trying to make it very clear that in my area of science, it's not just the hard science that I'm looking at. I'm also looking at, like you said, behaviors and what it looks like for exposure pathways. And for me, my sector is the dietary pathway, the residential pathway, and the occupational pathway. So it's pretty cool.
That is, and oh man, that is, and this is just, you just threw out one example, right? There's probably an infinite number of things you have to think about in a day. Well, not infinite because that's impossible, but this is just one example, right? There's many, 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 many other examples of behavior versus risk versus exposure.
Yes.
Oh,
and it's a very, so basically we live by a very simple equation, right? The equations are simple. So risk equals the hazard times the exposure. So risk is the bad part, right? Risk is what you don't want. You either want to mitigate the risk or eliminate the risk.
Yeah.
But if you don't have a hazardous thing or a bad thing, or you don't have exposure to that thing, then risk is negligible. It doesn't really matter because risk equals hazard time exposure. So you can have a really bad thing, right? But if you're never exposed to that thing, then there is no risk, is there?
Right. Like mercury that used to be everywhere, right? Like risk to that is now zero, basically. In my house. There's like mercury in thermometers and things like that. I had to tell kids about that I remember being in school, and the science teacher came out and dumped some mercury on our desk, and we just played with it because that was normal.
Oh my gosh.
Because that was normal. Yep. That's pretty dangerous.
Oh, yeah,
that's huge risk. Times exposure.
Very huge risk. Very huge risk. I remember having those mercury thermometers, and now we have alcohol thermometers, but I don't remember us ever being able to touch it. No. They always were very clear about that.
I would hazard a guess, folks my age or older probably like played with mercury. They just like would dump some mercury on their desk and they just bat it around or something like that. So yeah.
And watch it. Remember the toys where it would move around inside? You had to move it, the mercury into the circle.
Yeah, it was a little maze.
I had one of those. Yeah, it was a little maze. I had that as a kid. Jason, we're telling our age.
It's so dangerous. Doc, can I ask you one more question before we open up the floor to questions?
Of course.
Yeah, because we have some people waiting, and our conversation has gone past the half an hour mark.
They want to talk to me? They're waiting for me?
Yeah, there's people that are waiting to have questions. They're in the audience right now.
Oh my goodness.
I know. You are such a great speaker, and you're so fun. I just looked at the time, and I'm like, oh my goodness, we're so far over. But I have to ask you for your pet story. We ask all of our guests on Spaces to share a quick a pet story with our audience because we're the science dogs of Twitter, right? So take it away.
Okay. All right. So what Jason is talking about is he's talking about the time. Oh my gosh. Okay. So my pup, he's no longer with us. He's crossed the Rainbow Bridge. But he was a Lhasa Apso, which is like a Shih Tzu cousin. He's a little dog, right? And so I let him out on the deck to do his business. It was nighttime, so I wanted him to go in the backyard and do his business. No, there's no time for a walk. It's nighttime, right? So he had to go. So I said, okay, go. And so I'm shooing him off the deck. He's standing at the bottom of the steps. I'm like, go into the grass, do your business. And he stops, and he's like frozen. And I'm like, will you go? And I'm getting kind of frustrated because he won't go. And so then I look just beyond where the deck light is on the grass, and I can see two eyes. And I'm like, oh, what is that? You know what I mean? And so then I hear this, arf, arf. And I'm thinking like, okay, it's just a dog, like, whatever. Because I had no idea what this animal was until I saw it. Then it starts creeping closer to my dog, and it's a fox. And so now I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a fox, oh my gosh. And so my dog is like just frozen. I'm like, his name was Marco. I'm like, Marco, come back, Marco, come back. And so the fox, which is significantly bigger than my dog, is like creeping forward. And so I ran off the deck and I stood between my dog and the fox because I'm like, I'm not going to let my fox get my dog. And I said, and so I must have, oh my God. And so I started barking like a big dog, like, to try to scare the fox away. And oh my God. I'm sorry. And so I'm like, I pretend to be this huge dog to scare this fox away. And I'm like, get away from my dog, you fox, get away. And when it wouldn't move, I pretend to be a really big dog and I was barking at this fox.
Did it eventually go?
Well, so it kind of backed up a little bit. Like, I think it kind of thought I was crazy. Like, what's going on? And so then I grabbed my dog, picked it up, and then I ran into the house. But yeah, so I stood between a fox and my dog, and I barked at it like I was a really big dog to try to scare it away. And that's my story.
Did you get complaints from your neighbors or anything like that? Where they check on your mental health?
The next day, my neighbor was like, are you good?
She knew. She's like,
I heard you in the yard. Like, what happened? And I said, it was a fox. She's okay. I said, she was okay. So what you do? Throw a stick? I said, no. I got in front of it and barked like a big dog. She goes, you're crazy. You could have me. Like, yeah, I don't know, but I just couldn't let it that's my baby. I couldn't let him take my baby away. So, oh my gosh.
No, I would get between many an animal and my dogs. Even the bear, I think I would. I'd probably fight a bear to save one of my dogs. I don't know how well that would go, but hopefully it never comes to that.
You know what, Jason? I'd do it again. I would do it again to save my baby.
Yeah, I love that story. And I love how it just takes you right back and you're back in that giggle moment where it's so funny and you're just reliving it. And that's wonderful joy. I love that story.
Because that's how you tell stories, Chris. You'll start laughing and I'm like, what happened? And you can't tell me, you're just laughing. And I'm like, what is going on?
I know.
Because it's absolutely ridiculous. It is ridiculous. Like, when I look at it now, I'm like, I shouldn't have done that. What if it did have rabies? It was absolutely, I can laugh now. That was but I can laugh about it now.
I know. I say if you're not laughing, you're crying, and it's better to be laughing.
Oh my gosh.
So if you're just joining us right now and you're wondering what the heck is going on, this is Spaces Unleashed. My name is Jason Zakowski. I'm the dog dad of Bunsen and Beaker. We were having such a great conversation. I lost track of being a good host and explaining what the heck the space was about. We have Dr. Shenell Tolson, who's a public health expert. She was regaling us with a story of standing on a fox to save her little dog. Hey everybody, I thought I would just give you some ideas about how you could support the Science Podcast. Number one, you could support us on Patreon. Check out patreon.com/BunsonBurner. There's multiple tiers of support, and the lowest tier of support is not much more than a cup of coffee a month. The second way is you could check out our merch shop. We've worked really hard to partner with clothing companies that do a great job of providing vibrant colors and soft feels. We also have the Beaker Stuffy for sale. It's so cute. The third way you could support us is giving us great reviews on our podcast playing apps. Any kind of review helps. And if you can't find a review, share our podcast with people. Thanks, everybody. Doc, is it okay if we have some folks in the audience ask you questions?
Yeah, sure. I didn't think anyone would be interested in talking to me. So yeah, it's really exciting. Yes.
So we'll keep the questions on point, and we do check your account just to make sure you're not a bot or a troll. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. So, do you have to leave at the top of the hour, right at like 8 o'clock?
No, we're good. We're
okay,
good.
So
let her rip.
Let her rip.
Okay. All right. Well, our first speaker we have is Judy. You'll see that her profile pic says Olive, but
you saved me. You saved me. I just about said Olive again. Thank you, Chris.
Hi, Judy.
Hey, y'all. Hey, Jason. Hey, Chris. Thank you. Dr. Tolson, you were such a bright light. I just want to say that off the bat.
She's awesome.
Thank you.
Oh, my Lord. You're awesome.
Thank you so much.
I'm gonna backpedal a little. I'll just tell you a little story, and then I have to get off because my husband's going to work. I have to make his lunch. But anyway, I just want to go back to healthcare if y'all don't mind.
Sure.
And I loved your dog story, by the way, because I'm a dog person. But I have to post a picture of my bears on my timeline now. But anyway, my mother is 93. She was just diagnosed. This is not a sad story. My mother's 93. She was just diagnosed with cancer for the second time and going through the testing. I assume you know what this is about, testing to get to the radiation part of it. But holy scientific things that are going on these days. We're going every day for testing, and she's going to have radiation next week, whatever. But we were sitting in the car, my little old mother, she's 100 pounds and about 5'3" now. And she turned to me and she said, "What do people do that don't have money?" Because she has insurance. And so when you were talking about going to Haiti, I don't think people understand that, what it means to go to Haiti and deal with people that are poor. And so she said to me, "What do people do that are poor and don't have insurance?" And I'm like, "I don't know, Mom. I don't know." We all know in a nutshell what happens. So my point is, God bless you for doing what you do. You're such a joyful person, seeing and doing what you do. Keep going. And that's my commentary. Thank you.
Thank you,
Love
Judy.
you.
Thank you so very much. That means a lot. Hear that from someone who can get something from just me just speaking. Thank you so very much.
I think I'm not the only one, but I could listen to you talk for like 16 hours, Doc. So, who's our next person, Chris? I lost track. I'm terrible at this.
I have it written down. Don't you worry.
Oh,
It's
I figured
Kiki.
you would.
It's Kiki. Yeah.
Well,
Hi,
thank you.
Kiki.
Thank you for saying my name correctly. I appreciate it. We did a whole session on Friday wins, about how to say my name properly. So with that being said, I'm European. I'm Greek, and when we had our kids, it was very popular, and I believe it still is. We save the umbilical cord just to maintain the stem cells, and we did that to prevent, as a preventative measure, and so we can have the original stem cells in case they develop a disease, so they can have the original stem cells, and hopefully we are hoping that with medicine advancements, especially right now during stem cells, that they were highly utilized to create the vaccines, which is something that I think people need to know, so they can stop being so scared of the vaccination. That there was a lot of new research based on stem cells and on cancer research. So the reason why I'm saying all this is, do you know of any studies that have been utilizing these stem cells, these umbilical cord stem cells, that have helped medicine find cures for cancer and other autoimmune diseases? Thank you so much.
So thank you so much for explaining that. For those who did not know what that meant when you said that you were taking umbilical blood and saving it. And by the way, because you said you're European, in the US, that's very expensive. So that's something that's considered a luxury. So for parents who have the option to do that and can afford it, they are in a luxury position because it's super expensive to do that. What she's talking about is at birth, the umbilical cord contains stem cells, and those stem cells can then be differentiated into many different things. It could be used for things like someone may develop leukemia down the line, or if you happen to have one child that has developed leukemia or some other kind of childhood cancer, sometimes parents will opt to have a second child and use their stem cells from their cord blood to treat or to come up with some kind of assistance with the symptoms as they move along with treatment. So yes, there are lots of studies that use stem cells for that kind of research, and it's been very successful. I mentioned leukemia because it's one of the well-known diseases where stem cell research has been very, very helpful in aiding young people, child leukemia I'm speaking of mostly, and aiding them in making it through their treatments and making it through to having healthier immune systems. So yes, there's lots and lots of studies going on that use stem cells, and it's something that's been breakthrough in science, and hopefully will move eventually there'll be some kind of. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you so much for responding. I'm glad to share something like that because I do think that we need to have these conversations because maybe some other people can benefit. Yes, I know it was expensive. We actually had to borrow money, but I don't regret doing that because it wasn't covered under our insurance. I just did it as a preventative measure because the way what is happening around us in the world it's such in I just need to feel some kind of a safety net underneath me, and I did it for both of my children just to have an equitable measure for both of them. Yeah, thank you so much for your answer. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Well, I had no idea. I'm so glad you're here. I would not be able to answer that question at all.
I'm so glad I came.
Who's next, Chris?
Tracy is next, followed by Kathy.
Hi, Tracy.
I just have 2 comments. I just want to say that it was cool that you said that you don't have to do everything at once. I don't know, because I'm like trying to like get back into working out, but I hate the gym. So I'm trying to do it like a couple days a week, but then I'm like, trying to do too much at one time.
Slow and steady. Build that habit. Slow and steady.
So probably needs to start with like just like 2 days a week instead of trying to be like 4 days a week and then like stress myself out.
And that's how you build healthy habits, Tracy. Slow and steady.
Thank you. And then the other thing was like, I don't know, even with my insurance and like growing up around doctors, like the stress of like being at the dentist, especially, or like the doctor is like what keeps me from it, even though I know how big your teeth are to your health. So I'm really going to try to make an appointment tomorrow to just get my checkup and have them be like, your teeth are horrible. They're all going to fall out tomorrow. And just try not to stress about it.
Nah, just get some floss, get that toothbrush and get to work. You'll be fine. You'll be okay. Don't stress out. Baby steps.
I just need like, they just like give you a sedative where you can still like interact, but not deal with all the stabbing, all the like instruments in your mouth, that type of thing.
You might get lucky. They'll give you some giggle gas.
Yeah, that's what I need. I need some like Novocaine or something. What's that? Is that what it's called? All right. Thank you.
Good luck to you.
I also have to make a dentist appointment. So thanks for the reminder, Tracy.
Hi,
they
Kathy.
they texted me twice today saying Adam hasn't been in 5 months, and I said, oh, okay, I'll get back to you. But yes, Kathy, yes, it's your turn to talk.
Hi, Dr. Tolson. I have mostly a comment for you. Until I retired, I worked for a foundation that supported community-based initiatives to improve health of children and their families, the W.K. Kellogg Foundation. And you did the best job I've ever heard of explaining in common English what is meant by social determinants of health and why they're so important to individual health as well as community health. And I just want to thank you for that. Because I think people underestimate and tend to think of everything as being individual behavior rather than understanding how people can have the best individual behavior, but when they're in the kinds of settings you're talking about, they still may not have health.
Kathy, thank you so very much. That means so much to me as both a science communicator and as someone who works in public health and talks about healthy outcomes. Thank you so much. And I'm so glad that you were able to pull that from what I said. Thank you so very much for that comment, Kathy.
Absolutely.
I got nothing. That was just a great conversation. Good. Thanks, Kathy. Love it.
Yep. It got my speech as well. Took my breath away. So we have Dr. M, and then we have Karen. There was another speaker who had requested, but I don't see them anymore. So Dr. M and then Karen.
Hi, Dr. Tolson. Actually, I missed the majority of the interview, and I was hoping that I could listen to the recording, but I just noticed the space is not recorded. I just joined a few minutes ago, so I really missed everything that went on in this room, but it sounds like you're a science educator, much like our host here, so of course, I appreciate you very much. It sounded like the conversation was going or is in the healthcare direction. So I requested a mic to come up here. Loving your pin tweet, Rush. No specific question. Just thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you, Dr. M, for joining and then hopefully for catching a little bit of the tail end of the conversation. Thank you so much for being.
If folks are wondering about what we do with the recordings, our patrons get the recording, and then after a week or two, we put it on the podcast feed. So I'm not a big fan of the recordings on Twitter, so it will be free for everybody. You can look for this conversation on the podcast feed as special content in a couple weeks, I think.
Awesome. So I will be able to listen. Awesome. I look forward to that. Thank you.
You betcha. Yep. Oh, and Dr. Tolson, if you want the recording, I'll send that to you right away.
Yay! I was so excited. This is so exciting for me. I don't get this all the time. So exciting, and then also to interact with people, and they're actually, getting something useful from me. And thank you for inviting me. Thanks so much. This is a good time. It really is.
Okay, so we're ready for Karen.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for doing this. This is the first time I've made it in, and I'm really impressed with what everyone else. I agree with what everyone else has said, that you express things in a way that everyone can understand, and that's very helpful. I was astounded to learn a week or so ago that a young man ate leftover Chinese noodles and rice that had been on the counter overnight and contracted some sort of meningitis where he lost his feet and his finger. And
I saw that video, Karen.
I am ashamed to admit I eat these pasta side dishes. I cook them one day. I leave them in the microwave overnight because if I put them in the fridge, they lose their texture when I reheat them the next day. And I've been doing this for years. And I'm thinking, how stupid is that? I always thought that once something was boiling, the bacteria was killed. And I'm thinking, was that Chinese food undercooked? Or what was that about? And am I really risking everything, leaving pasta out overnight? I also was amazed to learn in the last year that you're not supposed to eat raw flour because that has terrible things in it.
So quick and simple explanation for this. So all bacteria are not created equal. They're different. So you may have heard of gram-positive, gram-negative bacteria. That's the typical idea we have about bacteria, right? Gram-positive, gram-negative, which is why all antibiotics don't work the same for all bacteria. But when you go deeper into the science, some bacteria like oxygen. Some bacteria don't like oxygen. Some bacteria like cold temperatures. Some bacteria like very warm temperatures. So depending on what type of bacteria it is will depend on where they thrive. Some bacteria are really, really smart little buggers, right? So over time, they've developed these things called capsules or special coating around their bodies. What that does is, even if you put it in a really high temperature, like boiling it, it can still survive because it's done this job to evolve to do that. So sometimes some bacteria can get into your food, and even if you boil it, it's still not going to do a good enough job to deactivate it or kill it or make sure that it can't release the entire system. And so then when it gets to your body, which is the optimum temperature where it likes to, take a boogie on down the street, right? It'll do its thing, and then boom, you're sick. So that's the long and short of it. Some bacteria are protected from heat, and you have to instead of you have to put them on fire to actually deactivate them or chemically deactivate them. So yeah, that's possible. It's very possible.
Okay. Have to be more careful with my leftover.
Gotta be very careful with your leftovers. And it doesn't take long either. Think about the same way you would with dairy products. We don't leave dairy products overnight, and that's a well-known concept, right? Apply that same concept to all of your food. When you leave it out, bacteria don't need that long to multiply. In a matter of minutes, they can double. And so think about minutes versus hours being left out overnight. It's very, very possible that the number of bacteria increased drastically, and then, the poor kid got sick. They're really ill.
Okay, thank you.
Sure thing.
I'm talking about on the episode of the Science Podcast that's coming out this week.
Are you?
Well, sort of. There was some study I read. C. difficile. I don't know.
Yep.
They looked at the capsule that's around it, and I don't want to give away the whole podcast, but it literally looks like chainmail from medieval times. When they looked at it underneath the really powerful microscopes, that made like this weird protein matrix that protected it like chainmail. And the researchers tried to poke it, and the chainmail stopped the micro pokes from getting through and messing with it. So, yeah, those bacteria are smart, aren't they? Some of them have armor.
Yep. Isn't it amazing? It's amazing.
Yep. It's kind of in their best interest to survive, I guess.
Exactly.
That's what I tell my students. I said the name of the game is to survive, thrive, and pass on your genes. And they laugh at me, but I'm like, no, that's the simple formula. If it's asexual reproduction, it's survive, thrive, and pass on your genes. And if it's sexual reproduction, it's survive, thrive, find a mate, and then pass on your genes. So that's what I tell them. One of our
you also need.
Oh, yes. I think you also need that for sure. A little bit of romance. One of our listeners, Adam, sent a link to the Boston Globe, but I don't know how to send that to Karen because I can't direct message her. So if someone knows how I might be able to do that.
Oh, I'm glad you're checking our DMs. I haven't even looked.
No, I'm not checking. I'm only checking my ones. I don't know which one I checked. I don't even know where my other phone is. I'm trying to do two phones at once. Oh my goodness.
Oh, there's a paywall around the thing Adam sent. It could be.
No, it's not. You hit close. You hit close. Okay. It says you're a winner, but you're really not a winner. It's a clickbait. But if you click close, then it isn't a paywall. I thought it was a paywall at first too. They're sneaky.
Well, we'll have to read that.
Okay, our next person is Lisa.
Hi.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi from Australia.
You're from the future.
Yes, it's already been Women's Day here, but yeah, it's Women's Month.
You get 2 Women's Day.
Yeah, I know. It's great. I have a couple of things going back to dental health. My grandmother suffered from dementia, and that's definitely linked to dental health. She had no teeth for most of her life. And that was something that they did back in the Depression period where they didn't have enough money for dental care, so they just took them all out and gave them dentures. But my future mother-in-law, her dental health is really bad, and I'm trying to get my fiancé to look after her teeth better, but it's difficult because they're in India, so that's a challenge. Another comment that I wanted to make was about food being left out and that sort of thing, because I work for Red Cross and we had to do food health, and I also do a food stall at a market, and there is what we call a danger zone for temperatures in that middle range between frozen or very cold, which you have in the fridge, and when you bring it up to a very high temperature and cook it and warm it for a while. So the woman who was surviving having left things in the microwave overnight was doing okay because of the fact that her food, she was reheating it and taking it up past that danger zone of temperature.
You're saying that that she was eating it well beyond that danger zone? You're saying, am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, probably. When she reheated it, it might have been bad if she'd eaten it cold from the microwave. Definitely not a great idea. But because she was probably reheating it, that was taking it back up past the danger zone of temperature. And because microwaves work on a very, very high temperature, so depending on how long she was heating it, if she was giving it a good 2 or 3 minutes in a high temperature zone, she was re-killing the bacteria that would have been problematic if she hadn't.
Yeah, that makes total sense. That makes total sense. Has she, depending upon, and I think a lot of people also, when they reheat things in the microwave, they don't think about, I need to reheat this to kill the bacteria. They're just reheating it to get it warm again. And I think that's another misconception about reheating things too. When you've left something out, it's really important to reheat it to kill the bacteria and not just so that it's comfortable to eat.
Yeah, absolutely. Not just warm. Get it really, really warm and do it for a bit of a time, even to the point where you're almost nuking it, which is, a danger with microwave reheating. But yeah, almost nuke it. Oh,
yep.
Sorry.
And when in doubt, put it back on the stovetop. When in doubt.
Or when in doubt, chuck it out.
Or check it. Yeah, or check it.
That's what we do with our fridge. It's like, oh, we bought that a while ago. We try not to be wasteful, but when in doubt, chuck it out.
I think there's a couple half-drunk Tim Horton cups in there, Chris.
You know what? There is. I think I'm going to drink them again, and then I don't.
I think you will die if you drink those Tim Horton cups. I think they're a science experiment.
You're sharing family secrets here.
Just a second, Chris. I got through the article that Adam sent. The leftovers losing the leg story, I guess, was debunked. That one was not true. I watched a video of a guy eating his roommate's noodles, and he got some kind of meningitis from them. And that one was true because it was being it was being not dissected, but there was medical doctors explaining what happened in the case study. But I guess this New England teen, there wasn't any evidence of him being in the hospital. It seems like it's a viral story, and well, it could possibly happen. It apparently did not. So
Okay.
just for that, yeah.
That's important to check everything. I do have a question that was sent in the DMs. It's from a wonderful person named Paula. And she is wondering, and I'm sure a lot of other people are wondering, is there a better way to clean counters other than using chemicals? Is there something natural that would be better?
A Bunsen lick.
No.
Did you basically tell them to flamethrow their countertop?
Vinegar cures all.
That was funny. So yeah, there are lots of ways to clean a countertop besides using synthetic chemicals, right? So there's vinegar, there is Dawn soap. Although Dawn is considered a chemical, Dawn is pretty safe. We wash baby animals with it. There's lots of things you can do. Lemon juice. There's lots of ways to clean it. But what I would caution folks is, I think we need to also, and this is a great question, so thanks, Donna, for raising this as a question. I think what we also should understand too is that a lot of the synthetic chemicals that we use are based off natural ingredients, right? And so sometimes we think about things like vinegar or lemon juice, and we think about those are ways that to naturally kill bacteria. What we don't consider is you would need so much of it to do the same to get the same effect that you would a synthetic chemical. So it's not to say that one is better or worse, but it's almost, I'll use a different example. So when we think about pesticides, right? People don't like to put pesticides on their food because, you're going to eat it eventually. So things like apples and grape and all that kind of good stuff, or regular ag products, your leafy green vegetables. People don't like to put pesticides on them because if you eat them, they're bad for you. They're good for the bugs to, die off, but not good for us to eat, right? But when you think about it, if you don't use a pesticide, you'll be set out into the yard plucking bugs off your garden, off your crop one by one, right? So in a way, we need pesticides as a convenience. So look at your chemicals in your household as the same way. It's a convenience. You don't need to use as much of it to do the same job as effectively with lots and lots of natural cleansing. So are there some things that you can clean without having to worry about using a lot of it? Sure. You spill, some orange juice, the countertop up. Sure, use your natural cleanser. If you have raw chicken on your countertop, you may not want to use lemon juice or vinegar. You may want to break out, a brand name household cleanser, because it's a little bit different there in the bacteria that you want to kill. And we'll go back to the example that someone else brought up about having leftover food. All bacteria isn't created equal. So you may not want to just clean the surface. You may also want to disinfect the surface as well. So there's a difference. So washing and cleansing and disinfecting are two different things. When you wash something, you get all the debris off, right? When you disinfect, you kill the bacteria or the microbes that are on the surface. So it depends. If you want to disinfect and sanitize, by all means, use your chemical or synthetic sanitizer. But for lesser problematic things like orange juice or milk or whatnot, go ahead and feel free to use your vinegar. No big deal. Dilute with water, always dilute with water.
I love that answer. I never even thought of it. And so that is amazing. Thank you. You just break it down so easily and it's relatable and it's like, makes total sense.
So glad
Tracy, Tracy, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just had a quick thing. Were there two stories about someone losing limbs because of bacteria? Because Jason said the one was fake from Massachusetts. And then you mentioned there was another one. So
right, I thought that was the one that was mentioned. I forget which person was it. Karen mentioned, maybe it wasn't Karen. Somebody mentioned the Chinese food one, and I mistakenly thought I watched the video like a week ago of this roommate. This guy ate his roommate's noodles that were old, and they both got really sick from the noodles. But the one guy got really sick and almost died. I don't know if he lost his feet, but he was in the hospital and he had to be put on a ventilator and everything. And that was a real story. For sure.
Okay, so that's what I've been telling to scare my coworkers.
Yeah.
So that actually happened, right?
But yeah, and don't eat your roommate's noodles, I guess.
Yeah, because it said he lost his fingers and his legs.
I don't
And
want to
then
say
he was
yes
on a ventilator and got meningitis. And
yeah, I don't want to say yes or no. Yeah, I don't want to say yes or no. Because this is like, I don't remember the exact what happened to the guy, but he definitely wound up on a ventilator. I remember that.
Yeah, all right. I'll check Snopes or something, see if they got that one.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Chris, who's next? Chris is maybe taking the dogs out. Oh, maybe nobody can hear me.
No, we can hear you.
Okay. I've lost my co-host. Okay.
Sorry, my mic is off. I thought I've been talking the entire time. I've been
Oh, no.
I've been on mute. I've been muted. It's like I'm teaching and it's like you're muted. Yeah. Yeah. That's what happened. I thought I was doing really good. So we have Dr. Now I might say your name wrong. It's either Muke or
Dr. Mook. Hi,
Muke.
Dr. Mook.
I got it right.
Sorry. I know this person. I'm sorry. I know this person. Hey, Dr. Mook.
Hey, the Public Health Bay. And you said it perfectly, Chris. Thank you so much for welcoming me on here. I had a question for the Public Health Bay. Yes, there was a viral topic on TikTok and Twitter, everywhere. And I just wanted to hear your take on it as it relates to this topic in particular.
Okay, wait. Am I ready for this? Am I ready for
you're
this?
super ready.
Am I hip? I don't know what the trending topic is. I don't know what it is.
It was a while ago, and it keeps coming back up on Twitter, particularly Twitter versus TikTok. But yeah, I guess I'll ask the question in two parts. Do you wash your chicken?
Oh my gosh.
That's number one. Two, what are the pros and cons of washing chicken before you cook it? Okay.
I love this question.
And love the podcast. Okay, bye.
Oh, I thought you were talking like a real chicken that hasn't been, like that's buck running around. I was like, why would you wash a chicken? Okay, I get it now. Sorry.
Yeah. So I know exactly what he's talking about with the great debate, right, on washing chicken. So I think this is also a cultural reference as well, because I think other people who are not members of the diaspora don't get what washing chicken is. So you aren't supposed to, quote unquote, wash your chicken. And when people say that, what they mean is when you pull out your chicken from the packet, right, you should be rinsing it off and making sure that you get all the physical yuckiness that you can see, right? You see the physical yuckiness on it. So you rinse that off, right? People are like, oh, you don't ever do that because you'll splash all the bacteria all around your kitchen. It'll get all their stuff. So the great debate comes in here. So if you're a member of the diaspora, wash our chicken. And we don't just wash it in the sink. We put it in water, and we also add things like salt and vinegar or lemon juice, some kind of acid, because we want to kill the bacteria, mainly salmonella and other things that are on the chicken. Because if you know about chicken, salmonella is one of the more dangerous bacteria that live on chicken. And also on turtles. We have a pet turtle too. So people that have children that have turtles also carry salmonella. So make sure when your kids are playing with the turtle, they wash their hands before they go eat their food or play with their face or the kind of.
I like turtles. I like turtles.
Oh my god. So
it's because we have turtles. I have 2 turtles.
I like turtles.
And they always make their way into the conversation. It's hilarious. They're Carl and or Sagan, and they're about 30 years old. And they carry salmonella.
Yep. So you got to wash your hands really good. So
can I ask a question?
Yes.
So I'm just curious. I don't eat chicken. Okay. I'm not vegan or anything, but I always hear a lot about bacteria in chicken and blah, blah, blah. My dog is allergic to chicken. Don't eat chicken. Is there a problem with chicken? Should we not eat chicken?
So, okay. So let's talk about that in a very, very, very nuanced way. Okay. I don't want to get too deep into the rabbit hole, but when we talk about what we should and shouldn't eat as far as food is concerned, we have to remember that the way we process our food here is very different than other places. So typically, if you are outside the US and you got a chicken, you actually have a chicken. Someone went out to the yard and got a chicken and prepared a chicken for you. That's very different with how we do here. Because we are Americans, American culture is bigger, badder, better, right? So our portions are huge. So we get a chicken, it's probably been pumped full of antibiotics or some kind of growth hormone to make the breast really big and the wings really big, so you want to eat them, right? Same thing goes with our beef and whatnot. We want to make sure that not only are they big and pretty and fluffy, so we want to eat them, but they also grow faster than normally would. Even some of the hormone-free ones still have something to get on that. So I think the question is not necessarily, is it safe to eat? It's more so like the quantity that we eat, because the way we prepare things in the US is very, very different than other places. So that is what the issues are when it comes to, should we eat meat? Should we eat chicken? Should we eat fish? Well, the way we prepare things is the issue. And if that doesn't make, I'll say this too. If that doesn't make sense, let's talk about how even now some fish, for a while, everyone was like, oh, fish is great. Omega-3s, fatty acids, fish, healthy, healthy, healthy. Well, now we're seeing the demand of fish become so high that we're now growing fish in artificial space. So we're not fishing for fish out in fresh water. We're growing them in ponds. We call them farm-raised fish. And farm-raised fish is not actually healthy at all because of the way that it's farmed. They're in small spaces. And when I say small space, in relevance to where they would normally be in the wild, right? Freely swimming in the water. So you have to do things, and we do the same things when it comes to our mass agriculture. When it comes to beef cattle and chickens and fish, they're all done the same way. We have a lot of animals in the same spaces and they're crowded. Then you need to do things like keep them from getting sick because they're so close. They're passing off, let's say chicken has a cold, right? Chicken giving us, I'm using a very, very nuanced example. One chicken has a cold and he's next to another chicken, like a cubicle. Now the other chicken has a cold. Now all chickens have a cold. I have to give them antibiotics. So we put things in the feed and in the water fish to keep the fish from getting sick because they are in crowded spaces. So those things also contribute to whether or not these foods are quote unquote good for us. So I think we need to step away from, can we stop eating chicken or stop eating that? Can we stop putting so much stuff in our foods? It's the better question to ask. I hope that makes sense. Does that make sense?
You make sense.
Okay.
You're brilliant. Right. You're brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. And so back to the question about washing chicken. The thing about washing chicken is you want to get all the bacteria off of it. So, but again, it's the cultural thing. In the diaspora, we actually do wash our chicken. That doesn't mean spraying all the bacteria all over the place. But even so, if you are rinsing your chicken off, we still wash our sink very thoroughly. So when you're in the sink cleaning your chicken, you're done with that, we are taking a brand name household cleanser and scrubbing that sink down really good. So no residue or anything. So I think that one, it's cultural, but two, it is safe to wash your chicken when you are washing it the proper way. So don't splash all the water all over the place, get all of them, wash it down really good, disinfect. So yeah, I wash my chicken very good.
Thank you, Dr. Shenell. Thank you so much.
And I season it thoroughly.
Okay, goodbye on that note.
I love you so much for that question. Oh my gosh. That was good.
I learned something new. I've never heard of washing chicken. So that's a thing. Great.
Yeah, it's a thing. But again, Jason, remember, it's a cultural thing. When we say wash, we don't mean spray it down, the hose in the sink, spray it down. Literally, you put it in another container with water, and you're going to either add your salt or your acid of some sort, lime or lemon, or vinegar, and you're going to let it sit for a little bit, and you're going to wash it in that container to get all the yuck off. And then you rinse it off and cook it like you normally would.
I'd imagine there's some Canadian slang with how we make our food, and it just doesn't make any sense to Americans too. So, Chris, who is next? You're the hostess with the mostest.
The hostess with the mostest. Thank you. Let's go to Lisa. Jay, did you change your profile pic?
What?
I thought
In
there was.
between, I keep hearing vinegar. That's like the salt of the earth, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, yeah. No, Lisa, you're good. I just saw Karen's cat and I just thought maybe you were Karen's cat and I got confused.
No, I was talking before, so you just haven't taken me.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay,
that's right.
So then we got to go to Rev. Then I think he's next.
Yeah, we do have to go to Rev. I knew I spoke to you, Lisa. I knew I put a check mark by your name, but then I thought maybe it's a new Lisa.
And we actually watched too.
That's what happens here. Okay, over to Rev.
Yeah.
Hey,
wow. I am
Hi, Rev.
I am finally a part of the #1 show on Twitter Spaces. I made it. This is awesome.
Yay!
Congratulations, both of you. This is by far, and I'm really good at what I do, but this is by far the best show on Twitter Spaces. No doubt about it.
Well, thanks,
couple
Rev.
of things. You're welcome, man. Love you, Jason. Quick couple of things, Doctor. In Chicago, the lowest average age it is not the poorest neighborhood in Chicago, but is 64, and the highest is 92. I will tell you that the 64 is a Black community, and the 92 is a super wealthy, lots of old people, white community in Chicago. But that's the difference between the average lifespan within 6 miles of each other, which is crazy. And then the other thing is, when you wash your hands, you don't necessarily need hot water. The hot water isn't going to kill any germs, but the soap, I don't think most people know, it doesn't kill the germs, it sloughs them off. The slipperiness of the soap makes the germs slide off of your hand. Am I correct about that?
You are correct. In order to kill germs, right, with heat, it would have to be really, really hot. And your skin probably couldn't tolerate that. So you are correct. The second part, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, so don't dry out your skin washing your hands with hot water all the time. I mean, I like to have my water warm because it feels nice, but that's it. And then, I didn't know if you wanted to make a response to the other thing, but then before I get there, we definitely need to talk. I have a platform that is not National Geographic, but I do know people there too. But I have a platform that I think you could have a lot of fun on, and maybe do some of the media work that you'd like to do. So, I would love to DM and see if that, could happen.
Please send me a DM. I am excited about this. Dr. Mook, are you listening? Text me later, Dr. Mook. So this is really exciting. Thank you for offering that. Yes, please do send me a DM and we can exchange information.
Yeah, I'll vouch for Rev. I'll vouch for him.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, and I mean, it'll be fun. And even that idea, I think, of what you would like to do even bigger, I can definitely help, even with some understanding of that. I do know a few science creators, and I do know one that does stuff for National Geographic, but they're not like a super close friend. But anyway, that'll be fun to talk. And wow, like seriously though, again, like I'm putting this on my resume. I have been on the #1 show on Twitter Spaces. So this is great. And it is the first time up here. And I see so many people that I know and love in the audience. It's great to see everybody. And if I ever somehow drift into the sky and float over your part of the world, I will visit. Otherwise, it might be tough because I know you're way out in the middle of nowhere. But I'd love to meet those dogs. They're so cute. You guys should go on tour or something.
Well, again, remember, we are so far away from nowhere. We'd have to drive to get there, just to nowhere. But we might have to go on a North American tour with Bunsen and Beaker. We'll have to chat about that, Chris.
I like that.
We need a new vehicle if we do
that. That's right. Yeah, because the van is on its last legs.
400,000 kilometers on it.
I love the van though.
Oh my God!
But it will not make a North America tour.
It's got another 200,000. It's got another 200,000.
No, in miles, that's a half the distance to Mars that you put on that car. So but if you need a new car or a new van or something for the tour, I mean, come on, let's just build that into the budget. You know what? I know there are people in this room. Wait a minute. Let me scroll real quick. Hang on. Well, maybe, but I definitely know that there could be people in this room that I know that could fund the whole thing. So yeah, don't pay for it yourself. Let the Canadian government give you all the free tax money to do it, and then find somebody else to come up with the rest of the cash. I don't have a lot of cash, but I will definitely help however I can. I think that would be the coolest thing ever, a Bunsen and Beaker North American tour.
I'll get on the horn with Ryan Reynolds.
Hey, there you go. Perfect. Hey, listen, if you do, I have some friends that would like to talk to him too. You know,
So before we move to the next person, so Rev, thank you so much for that DM. I want to touch on things that so getting back to the hand washing thing. So yeah, you don't have to use super hot water. Warm water is still better than cold water, super hot water. And then also about the bacteria being sloughed off. So when you use soap is a surfactant, right? And so surfactants get rid of oils on your hand, which is they get rid of oils, period. Which is why you get dried out, whether you're bathing, washing your hands, etc. When you wash and use soap, surfactants get rid of oil and dirt, like little micelles, right? Little circles, they encapsulate the dirt, rinse off the soap, the water rinses everything away. What you're left behind is a stripped area. So your body is stripped of the dirt and the natural oils that it produces, which is also why you want to replenish that moisture and use some kind of moisturizer after bathing and washing your hands. Because another route of exposure to getting sick or getting a pathogen or germ inside your body is through cracked skin. So your skin is the first line of defense from getting sick when it comes to physical barriers, right? But if it's cracked or broken, you leave an area open to getting some kind of bacteria inside your body. So bathing is not bad. Bathe often, bathe regularly if I see, but moisturize after to keep your skin nice and healthy and keep fighting off infection by stopping bad guys who don't belong in your body from getting in your body. The second thing is, yes.
I was going to say, if you live where I live, meaning in my house, please bathe regularly. The other thing is, they may be listening. And the other thing is, I love what you said about over washing and doing all these things and getting the cracked skin and getting the irritants and the bacteria, especially when you're washing or not washing your chicken, And so I know you want to answer the next question, and I know they want to move on to the next caller. But quickly, I'm curious, when you wash your chicken, do you wear gloves? Anyway, but I know you have a second answer there.
So for me, the answer for that is no. And that's only because I'm not doing it long enough that I'm worried about getting something. And unless I have a crack on my hands or my skin square, I don't. But that's because I'm not doing it long enough for anything for me to be worried about it. I hope that answers your question. The other thing I want to say was thank you so much, Rev, for bringing up the length of time or life expectancy between the haves and the have-nots in the area. Because oftentimes when I say things, I know people think it's anecdotal, but it's not. So I wanted to thank you for bringing that up so that folks, I'm not just spewing, just random stuff. It's actually true. And so thank you for bringing that to light and, kind of fortifying what I was saying. Thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. And that study is just fresh a month ago in Chicago, and it's devastating. So yeah, great. And we'll talk. I DM'd. You'll have to DM me. We're not following each other. But anyway, we'll move into personal business. I'm out of here. And once again,
no, wait, don't leave yet. Wait, let me call you so we can get that.
We're good.
Okay, boom, got it.
Discrepancy thing.
Yep.
Say that, Chris.
Can I interject?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Lisa.
Age discrepancy thing. It's true here in Australia as well. The Indigenous communities, there is what we call a huge gap, and we're trying to close the gap. But in terms of access to services like healthcare, dental, and like Canada, it's free here, except dental and optical. It's weird. But yeah, the gap in age expectancy and in different types of disease and problems with health like diabetes, high blood pressure, and other things. There's rheumatic heart problems, all sorts of things that can be treated if you are given the same treatment by healthcare. But a lot of the people in remote Aboriginal communities and even city Aboriginal communities are discriminated against. It's terrible. It's really not a good thing.
We have a similar issue with that in Canada with our Indigenous peoples as well. Canada's gone through quite a reckoning in the last, 5 or 6 years. Would you say, Chris, with the Truth and Reconciliation? It's not 100%. I would say just talking about it though is making everybody aware, which is better.
We have to acknowledge the truth.
Yeah.
You have to acknowledge the truth before there's reconciliation.
Yeah.
And the fact that there is water that is unable to drink on their land.
Yeah. It's not great.
I just can't.
Yeah, it's pretty it's definitely a tough situation, and you have to admit there's a problem before you can tackle the problem. So just talking about it is an important step forward too.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Rev, did you want to say something before we close out here?
Yeah, I did just quickly because I want to acknowledge in the United States that we also have a problem, and there is the MMIW missing murdered Indigenous women movement here and across the border. And I just love that you brought that up. We have a serious crisis with Indigenous folks, and a lot of them share the border. They jump back and forth. So I'm just appreciate you bringing that up. And I did just want to say one more time, I am on the #1 show on Twitter Spaces. It's really cool. You guys are awesome, and just keep it up. I wish you guys could be on 5 nights a week. Seriously. I know you would. I know you don't want to, but I'm just saying it's really fun.
Thanks. I want to bring this back full circle to Dr. Tolson, because at the start you talked about your PhD dissertation. You went to Haiti and you talked about how public health isn't just the disease, it's everything. And I think that's a good thing to kind of leave on, is that if it is everything, then the little things that we do to help out each other can snowball to help out everything. And maybe we're not a genius at public health like you are, Doc, but I think just talking about it allows us to pick where we can help society in our daily life. And that does lead to better health outcomes for everybody.
Absolutely. And if that's a great way to sum up. I don't have to say anything else. I'll leave you all with be well and make good choices.
Dr. Tolson, this was so amazing that you were our guest tonight. No word to lie, I've been looking forward to talk to you again since we chatted on the podcast. You left me, I was smiling from ear to ear for like days after we chatted. And I was like, Chris, you wouldn't believe who I talked to. She barked at a fox, and she does stuff with public health. And from my family to yours and our community here on Twitter, thank you so much for being our guest on Science Chat Spaces Unleashed.
Thank you for having me. This is a great time. Thank you, everyone who showed up, wanted to speak to me, got something out of the conversation. Thank you so very much.
I have up in the nest a couple tweets of Dr. Tolson, so take a look at them before we close the space. One is her green screen challenge. If you're not following Dr. Tolson, please do so. All you have to do is click on her profile and press follow. And the other is something that she's involved with called STEMbassy. And that is like an all-star lineup of women in STEM, women of color in STEM, and many of whom we've talked to on the podcast and are just inspirational people too. Did you want to chat briefly about STEMbassy, or just say, hey, go check it out? I don't know. I didn't mean to put you on the spot with that.
No worries. So I'll say two very briefly. One, check it out. Two, so season 4 is on hold. For those of you who don't know, STEMbassy, the brainchild, and unfortunately, she contracted COVID and she is moving through long COVID symptoms right now. But she's getting better.
Yeah, our hearts are going out to Dr. Baxter. She's been chronicling her struggle with long COVID, and it's just, I'm glad she is getting better, because it was really, really rough for her. I know for a time. It's still not 100%, but
but she's getting better, and we're happy to see her. Still communicating with people and letting everybody know how she's doing.
Thank you, everybody who joined us tonight for Science Chat Spaces Unleashed. Thanks once again to Dr. Shenell Tolson, public health expert, chatted with us about her time in Haiti, researching public health, and letting us think a little bit about maybe I shouldn't be making sandwiches on the counter. Thank you to everybody who came up to speak tonight and asked such great questions. It's daunting to public speak, and we do appreciate the community that's growing around our science chats. Every Saturday on Twitter, we run Pet Chat at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. There's no scientists that we have, but we just talk about Bunsen and Beaker, and we let folks share their stories about their pets. So if you need a wholesome break from the day-to-day, join us on Saturday at 6 p.m. You can find the full interview with Dr. Tolson on the Science Podcast, as well as, if you've missed any of our science chats, they're there on our RSS feed. That's the fancy word for the podcast feed. Any closing words, Chris?
I just want to thank everybody for coming and sharing the space with us and learning lots. I think this was so educational and so inspirational. And I know that we're all going to take something away from this conversation and be better for being here tonight. So thank you, everyone. And continue doing what you're doing, Doctor. It's amazing. And I'm really excited about your new venture with Rev. It's going to be awesome.
And Doc, if you need any push of content, just tag Bunsen and Beaker and we'll help you out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, take care, everybody. For science.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. For science, empathy, and cuteness. Space closing in 3, 2, 1, 0.